Hi, I'm Lauryn Perkins and I am on the PGCE secondary drama course. So when I was teaching in my first placement, we had a system in drama when grouping for group tasks that we would get students to pick a pair and they would move into their pair, so they got to choose what pair they would be in, and then we as teachers would put those pairs into groups, trying as much as possible for these to be mixed gender, so boys and girls. So they got to choose one person they were working with, and then we picked. So a lot of the time this worked, and the groups worked well, but especially in the younger years we saw that there was some discomfort with the groupings, and a lot of the time the pupils may ask to change groups or say they don't like this person, they don't want to work with them, or we don't feel comfortable working with boys, or sorts of things. And I really had to think about how that affects the work ethic and how they're communicating in these groups, and whether these groupings are then beneficial to the students and their learning. So because when a pupil knows that someone in their group doesn't want to work with them, they're not going to want to interact or communicate effectively with that person, and is any real learning that is, effective going to take place? So you have that question in your mind of whether you keep that person in the group or whether you allow them to change groups, and then if you allow one person, you allow other people, and it disrupts the whole lesson. So I did some research inquiry on this, looking at how placing high achieving girls in groups with more challenging boys helps to engage the boys and prevent gender imbalances in lessons. So when evaluating this system, I think for the most part this technique works particularly well within classes, as it enables students to work with other students that they may not necessarily work with every day or socialise with outside of lessons. So it really gives them a chance to get new perspectives and new ideas. However, when evaluating the gender imbalances within the class and the impact of placing high achieving girls with challenging boys, there is some difficulty in evaluating this within drama lessons, as from observations I can see that the boys that can be considered to be challenging can sometimes be more motivated in drama because it's a subject that they enjoy. So I think that sort of aspect comes down to the lesson and what sort of environment that they are in. But when doing research on this, Zhang and Hu's study showed that gender diverse groups perform better than homogenous groups by decreasing relationship conflict and task conflict. So this means that the literature is supporting the evaluation that the mixed gender groupings can help groups, not only boys but also girls, to be more productive and have less conflict. Supporting this, Maikovsky et al. Found that men were more task-orientated in mixed gender groups than in same-sex groups, and that they were more talkative when they were in same-sex groups than in the majority. So, putting them with girls can make them more task-orientated, more focused, and more effective learning can take place. However, the same study actually found that women were less task-orientated in mixed gender groups than in same-sex groups. So I think when I came to the conclusion then within this reflective model that it's all about knowing your learners. It's all about knowing what girls to put with what boys, what girls are really motivated, that they're not going to let boys being in their group distract them from the task. So I think you really have to know your learners and know which girls you're putting with, and what boys you want to prioritise in keeping their focus in lessons, depending on the environment that they're in. So knowing your learners, knowing what you're doing, knowing whether or not you want mixed gender groups. in some cases you might want the same sex, and the lesson might be around that, but I think it really just, as I've said, comes down to knowing your learners. The studies and the research can give you all the information that you need and to back up some of your choices, but if you don't know your learners and you don't know how they're going to work well and how they're going to interact with each other, the studies don't know relationships between people or individual personalities, so they can't account for that, but you as a teacher can. So yeah.